me. Tonight we're going to be having a lecture on Cornell Notes. So if you follow along with me. Cornell Notes are also called the hidden curriculum. So when we're going through the lecture tonight, I'd like you to think of these two questions. First, how did you learn the skill of note-taking? And second, how did this skill contribute to your success? Well, we're going to back up a little bit and ask ourselves, why do we take notes? What's the point? Well, the Cornell Notes method that we're going to talk about tonight is going to stimulate your critical thinking skills. It's going to help you remember what is said in class. And then a good set of notes can help us, as students, work on assignments, prepare for tests, and study outside of the classroom. Additionally, a good set of notes is also going to allow us to help each other as students problem solve. It helps us organize and process our data and information. A cool thing about Cornell Notes is that it helps us as students recall information by getting to process our notes at least 3 times. So we're going to learn that writing is a great tool for learning. But before we begin to get into what Cornell Notes are, how they work, and what we do with them, let's first talk about the history of Cornell Notes. Cornell Notes were developed in 1949 at Cornell University by Walter Popp. They were designed in response to his own frustration over a student's test scores. Thus, they were meant to be easily used as a test study guide. An interesting fact about Cornell Notes is that this method of note-taking is adopted by most major law schools across the country. Okay, so this is what Cornell Notes are actually going to look like on our paper. As you can see, the class notes are in the large right-hand column where they usually go, but there's some unique features, so take note. At the top, of course, we have our topic, our first and last name, the class period, the date, and the title. But on the left-hand column, we're going to preserve about 2.5 inches to put questions, subtitles, headings, etc. And then at the bottom of the page, you can put a 3 to 4 sentence summary that's going to summarize the day's lecture on the last page of your notes. Not every page, but the last page. Okay, so if we were taking notes on tonight's lecture, it might look something like this. Our subject, we're going to ask ourselves the question, why do we take Cornell Notes? Then at the top we have the date, of course, and our name. There's 2 parts to our notes, the process, which is also called our output, or our main ideas, which are our notes, the details. We're going to call this the input. So we talked about a few things about how Cornell Notes can help us organize our ideas. Let's go back through a few of these that we've already discussed. Well, Cornell Notes can be used to provide an outline to our lecture or the readings that we're doing for class. They're organized by main ideas and details, and that they are usually taken and most effective in a sequential manner, where you take notes that are given by the instructor in an orderly fashion. Then, after class, like I said, we write a 3 to 4 sentence summary of what we've learned to clarify and reinforce the information to assist our retention. Okay? Cornell Notes can also be used as a study tool. They first can help define terms or explain concepts that are listed on the left side of our page, and then second, they identify concepts or terms that are outlined and given in detail in the right main portion of our notes. Sometimes Cornell Notes can also include diagrams or self-concept maps. These can be used to provide a big picture of the chapter, so you can have the whole idea. These are organized by main ideas and subtopics. But the problem with diagrams and concept maps are sometimes they are limited to how much detail we can present. And at the same time, we can use this method for instructors who do jump around a lot, so it's easier to just make a concept map instead of going in an orderly fashion. So let's also review the benefits. So we ask ourselves the question in the process, on the left side again. And then in the main ideas, we're going to continue. So the benefits to us about Cornell Notes is that it can be used as a study tool. It helps us get a quick overview, and it helps us to determine whether you need more information or need to concentrate on specific ideas and topics of the day's lecture. Okay? This is what a summary page might look like. In the summary, from all of our pages of our notes, we're going to write 3 to 4 sentences. It can maybe look like something like this. We're going to summarize it as, yes, there are a few ways of taking notes, but the Cornell method is best when the instructor is given information in a sequential and orderly fashion. It also allows for more detail, opposed to diagrams and the semantic web concept map method, which that is used better for instructors who jump around and skip from topic to topic. but this also can provide a big picture and an overview of our day's notes, helping us to study for the test. Okay? So a few notes about the summary page. The summary page, like I said, is added at the end of all of your notes on the subject, not on the end of every page. Okay? Remember that the summary is added after the questions are finished. So after class, you go home and then you can ask yourself questions. Then, the summary should answer the problem stated in the subject. Okay, so why do we take notes? We can go to our summary and answer that question. Let's go through a few more examples. We also talked about how Cornell Notes can be used as a study tool. So this student wrote a lecture. After listening to a lecture, he wrote these notes. He wrote them on propaganda techniques in advertising. So as you can see in the left-hand column, he defined terms like propaganda and 4 common techniques used by advertisers, such as the testimonial, the bandwagon, the plain folk technique, and the transfer technique. Okay? So here's the subtitle, his heading, and then in the main idea portion, the input, is where he puts all the details about those key terms and those ideas. Okay? Then at the bottom, he wrote 3 to 4 sentences, or he even just put bullet points. So this type of page of notes is going to help you as a study tool. It's what you might create in order to study for an exam. This example is one that shows a diagram or a concept map. So in class, if your instructor is not as sequential or orderly in the fashion as in giving you ideas and information from lecture, you can write a diagram like this. Then, at home, your assignment is to ask questions. Kind of process the information. What do you not understand? What can you ask questions to better understand and help your retention of the information for the exam? Okay, I said the word assignment. That means there are assignments and instructions in taking the Cornell Notes method. So these questions that you create at home after your lecture, in the left-hand column, they should elicit critical thinking skills. And these critical thinking skills are levels 3 through 6 in Bloom's taxonomy of learning. So let's take a brief review of Bloom's taxonomy before we move on. There's 6 steps. The first, beginning with knowledge, is recalling the information, remembering what you did in class. 2 is comprehension, understanding that information, processing it. 3 is application, which is using learning from this situation in other contexts, so in your other classes, or taking notes for other lectures. 4, analysis, ability to see the parts and relationships between the skills that you have learned. Synthesis, synthesizing all that together and using these parts to create a new whole or a new idea. And then evaluation, making your own judgments based on the criteria above. Okay, so back to that assignment and our instructions with taking Cornell Notes. The questions that you write when you go home should reflect the following things. Information you don't understand or that you want to discuss with an instructor or a tutor. Information you think would go well on an essay test. And then finally, it should address the gaps in your notes, those things that you don't understand or can't make the connections with. So let's review. What goes where? The notes go on the large right-hand column, exactly where they always go. But you reserve the left-hand side, you reserve about 2 inches for headings, subtitles, key terms. But remember, we want higher level critical thinking skills here, not just terms and headings. Don't forget the heading, the name, the class, the period, the date, and the title. And then finally, the 3 to 4 sentence summary down at the bottom of the last page of